It's the slap heard around the world, but what can we learn from it? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. Now, look, I used to be obsessed with celebrity gossip, and I have just completely eliminated most of that from my life. But certain things come up in the media that just capture people's attention, and you kind of can't ignore them. And the Will and Jada and Chris Rock entanglement has kind of really captured everyone's attention. And as much as I do not want to encourage people to spend a lot of their time worrying about these millionaire celebrities' lives and their drama, I do think there are some things that we can learn from this instance and some things that I wanted to point out. So I just thought I would use this as a jumping off point for a bigger discussion that I think is more important that we should be having. I want to state for one, I do not believe for 1 second that this incident was real. I believe it was 100% staged. I'm not here to debate with you whether it was real or whether it was staged. I've had this debate with too many people on social media and I'm like, I'm over it. I believe it's fake. You may believe that it's real. I honor that. I would encourage you to question absolutely everything that Hollywood presents to you, especially things that are this big a deal in the media, and especially things that somehow have absolute perfect camera shots and perfect photo angles that create perfect memes that show up literally 5 seconds after the incident happened. And everybody's like, ooh, the internet's so quick. It's like, is it? Or was this all pre-planned? I'm not bringing that up because I want to get into a debate about that. It's not what this video is about. It's just that because I do talk a lot about media manipulation here on my channel, I just encourage you to always pay attention to some of these things and the things that don't add up and the things that don't make sense, because what the media presents to you is what they want you to see and what they want you to be talking about. And I do believe it's always either a distraction or some kind of manipulation, because I really do believe that what we see of celebrities is exactly what they want us to see. It's all a persona. And you know, I've been in the entertainment business, obviously not to the level of any of the people involved in this particular instance, but I have been in the entertainment business. I worked as a stand-up comedian for 15 years, so I have a lot of opinions about this from Chris Rock's standpoint, and I'm probably biased, but I know what it's like to have a stage persona that I created myself, and it was totally me, and it was an aspect of me. It was real, but it was just one aspect of me and who I was. And even in that sense, where I wasn't a huge public figure, I did get lost in that persona. It was really difficult at a certain point to separate my real life from who I was on stage, because who I was on stage, I was creating material from my real life, so I felt like I had to live that life off stage. And I know I got lost in it, and I can only imagine when you get to that certain level of celebrity persona, how much you can get lost in that, and you may even end up convincing yourself that you are the person you're presenting to the world, even if that's only one aspect of you. Or some of these celebrities may be nothing like what they're presenting to us. We don't know. Even if some of us may have met some of these people in passing, or even maybe even hung out with any of them, you still don't really know who they are in real life. I do have a quick little breakdown of the instance on my TikTok that I did, just talking about the energies that were present in this whole situation, because I think it's relevant to talking about relationship dynamics and energies. And I also think I'm seeing people portraying this situation as an example of how to handle yourself in a situation that I think is actually not a good representation, right? If that made any sense. It's gonna make sense. I swear I'm gonna explain what I just said. I don't even know what I just said, but I'm gonna explain it. I don't believe this is real, but let's set this aside and let's just say this instance was real for the sake of this argument. I think there's a few different ways you can look at this as far as relationship dynamics, right? There's one school of thought of people who believe that Jada basically told Will to do something about the situation and basically gave him an order, and so he got up and slapped someone. I don't know if that happened or not. Don't really care. But I think it brings up a really interesting and common scenario. Giving orders, directing orders, telling someone what to do, it's very masculine energy. And many women in today's society have it ingrained in them to be in their masculine energy. And many women are used to barking orders at people in general and even their partner, which is very masculine energy. If a woman is naturally feminine and she wants to be in a relationship with a masculine partner, it's really important that she learn to soften that, because barking orders at a masculine partner is not going to create a healthy relationship dynamic. It's either going to put him in his feminine energy and make him a yes man, which isn't going to work for you, or you're gonna be two masculine partners butting heads and it's gonna kill the sexual polarity, right? So I do fully believe that as a woman, if you want to embody the feminine energy in your relationship and you want a partner who is in his masculine energy, you gotta learn to soften, bark in those orders. You can't be bossing men around all the time. Like, it doesn't work like that. There's other ways of inspiring a man to do the things that you really need him and want him to do for you than barking orders at him. I think we also have to realize as a society that many women have it ingrained in us so deeply that barking orders at someone is the way to get what we want, that it's kind of a lot to ask to expect a woman to never react that way, particularly if a woman is being triggered by something, if she's in her emotions, if she feels unsafe for some reason. Women are gonna at some point bark an order at someone. And if you're in a relationship with someone, even a very feminine woman is gonna at some point get to a place where she's going to react somehow and bark an order at a man, right? It's probably going to happen at some point. When a woman barks an order at her masculine partner, most men react in one of two ways, and both of them are really bad. One way that men react is from a very, I would say, wounded feminine place, where they become the people pleaser and they become the, okay, I have to do exactly what she says. And they do that really out of fear of losing her. It's really their own insecurity, and it's a fear of losing her if you don't give her exactly what she wants. It's a very needy energy. She may be happy in that moment, depending on the situation. I mean, there's so many different scenarios this could be. However, she's not going to respect a man in the long run that's doing that. She's gonna lose respect for him because he's gonna be in his wounded feminine energy. She's gonna always feel like she's in her masculine energy and that she's gonna have to lead the relationship. She's gonna have to constantly tell him what to do. She's gonna constantly feel like she can't trust him to be a leader because he just follows her lead. And that dynamic is really common nowadays. And that can become a really unhealthy dynamic where she's going to naturally feel like she needs to boss him around, or maybe she wants to boss him around, and she's never really going to fully respect her partner, and he's going to feel her lack of respect for him. Second scenario that men fall into, which is just as bad, is the man who I would say is in wounded masculine energy, who reacts from ego. So when a woman barks an order at him, his initial reaction is, she can't tell me what to do, and he immediately does the exact opposite, or nothing. He basically just disobeys the order because his ego is like, she can't tell me what to do, so I'm going to do the opposite. And in that situation, the woman in that scenario is very likely going to feel very unsafe. It's going to feel like, okay, he's making decisions that are irrational. They're not rooted in anything. They're not grounded. They're literally just to spite me. She's going to feel his anger and hatred, and she's not going to feel safe with him or safe with his direction. He's not a safe leader, and he may lead, he may be a strong man, but she's not really going to feel safe in his leadership. It's going to feel like it's coming from a real ego place, and there very often could be anger, there could often be instability. It's not going to feel like a safe space for a woman. So even though both of these scenarios are the most common, neither one of these is really the ideal way for a man to react in that situation. And so while I would encourage women to heal the part of them that feels like they need to bark orders at a man, if a woman does slip into that situation and she does bark an order at a man, what I would invite men to do in that scenario, think of that as an invitation for you to wake up and realize that you need to take action, and then actually figure out for yourself what you feel like in your truth is the best move in that moment. It may align with what she told you to do. Doesn't mean you're a people pleaser. You literally are doing the thing that you think is best. It may be the opposite of what she tells you to do. Doesn't mean you're in your ego. You're doing what you think is best. It may be something completely different, or it might be nothing. But it's what you believe is your truth and is the best move in that moment. And that is always going to be the most trustable. Not saying it won't cause conflict, not saying it won't cause emotions or stress or something, but it's always the best option because you're going from your truth. So instead of seeing this woman as barking an order at you as being that you have to please her or that you have to dismiss her out of ego, it's an invitation to say, hey, okay, I need to wake up and I have to do something. What's the best course of action to do right now in this moment that is gonna get the outcome that is the most desirable? You know, whether it be creating safety or whether it be standing your ground, or whether it be speaking your truth, or whatever that situation is in that moment. It's about letting that order inspire you to figure out what your truth is and what the next move is and what the best situation is in that moment. And so I see a lot of people assuming, and again, we don't know what actually happened, but I see a lot of people assuming that Jada told Will that she was hurt and that he needed to do something to defend her. I see a lot of people praising Will for like, oh, he's finally standing up for Jada. But was that his truth? And we don't know. We don't know if that's what happened. We don't know the scenario. Again, I don't think it was real, but again, we don't know the whole situation. I think it's safe to say that if Jada told Will to go smack Chris Rock and he just went ahead and did it, but that wasn't his truth, she's still not going to respect him. She's still going to see him as just a people pleaser or as a man she can push around. If she said to him, yeah, I'm hurt, but I don't want you to do anything, and he was like, you know what, I'm done taking orders from her, I'm done with her telling me what to do, and he got up and smacked him, that's not going to feel safe either. She's going to feel really unsafe, and he's going to feel really unstable to her. And again, I'm just using hypotheticals here because, again, I wasn't there. We don't know what the conversation was. If it was even a real conversation, I'm just saying. The best move in that moment would be whatever Will's truth was in that moment, what he thought was the best way to handle that situation. That would be the appropriate thing to do. Jada getting upset is really the invitation. It's the wake-up call to him to say, hey, something happened here, I need to take action. What's the right action for me to take? Even if that action is no action, you know, I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, I'm just saying even if that was the case, it needs to be his decision from his truth, which may align with what she tells him to do, and it may not align with what she tells him to do. It's what is true in that moment, what is the best course of action in that moment. And I think if more men focused on that as opposed to pleasing their partner or displeasing their partner, I think, I'm not saying it would avoid conflicts completely, but in the long run, a feminine partner is always going to respect a masculine partner who follows his truth, who leads with his truth, because he's going to be more trustable in the long run. Even if in that moment it may not be necessarily exactly what she wants, he's going to be more trustable in the long run. Now, another thing that I want to point out, because so many aspects to this that I think are unhealthy that people are kind of praising, and it disturbs me a little bit. For one, obviously, as somebody who did stand-up comedy for a long time, and I've heard of comics getting assaulted on stage. I've never actually been there when a comic was physically assaulted on stage. I've seen some comics get things thrown at them aggressively on stage, but I think the idea of feeling like people can get up on a stage when a comic is telling jokes, and I've seen some really, really horrifically offensive jokes. I don't think it's ever acceptable to go up and punch someone in the face. Comics are doing their job. I see a lot of people saying, like, finally Will stood up for Jada, finally Will stood up for Jada. I think it's a really bad precedent to set that this is the way that a man stands up for a woman. Now, had Jada or a man's wife or somebody been in physical harm, or been actually even like threatened aggressively or something, yes, I do fully believe that a man should stand up and protect his partner. 100%. Very strongly about that. I believe that men in their masculine have a drive to protect the ones that they love, and I think that they should be able to protect the ones that they love. That need and drive to protect should be in proportion to the threat the person is in. And a person just having hurt feelings about a joke is not a threat to physical violence. I really think it's dangerous that we set this as the precedent for, like, this is the only way that a man can stand up for his woman or for his partner. I'm not somebody who's saying that physical violence is never something that may need to happen in a certain situation. We have self-defense laws for a reason. I believe that that needs to be a last resort, and only when that situation is warranted. Will standing up for his partner can happen in a lot of different ways. It didn't even have to be public. It could have literally been a private conversation with Chris off stage saying, man, that was really hurtful. And I'm willing to bet, again, if this was real, I'm willing to bet that if Chris Rock actually thought he'd really hurt Jada, he probably would have apologized. In fact, most comics would. Most comics don't really want to hurt people, to be honest with you. We just want to make people laugh. Like, we're basically clowns without the makeup. Or in my case, with the makeup. But anyway, no, it could have been you know, in a press conference after, Will making a statement about wanting to support his wife and not finding the joke appropriate. And, you know, I mean, there's so many other ways that you can handle that in a grounded, rooted, stable place. If we assume that the situation was real, Will was very emotional. He was in his emotions at that time. That's not a good sign when somebody is in their emotions and they go to physical violence. A man fighting from a grounded place because he needs to protect his loved ones, it's gonna feel calming to a woman's nervous system because she's gonna feel protected. When a man is in his emotions and jumps to attacking someone, particularly someone who is a lot smaller and physically less strong, and someone who hasn't exhibited any level of physical threat. A man exhibiting that level of behavior, even against another man, it's gonna feel unsettling to a woman, because if a man reacts that way out of emotion, she's gonna start thinking, what's gonna stop him from reacting that way to me if he gets triggered by me? And women are not gonna feel safe in a relationship with a man if she feels like she can trigger him into physically attacking her, because that's not going to feel like a safe space. I'm not implying any domestic violence situations at all. That's not where I'm going with this at all. I'm not implying, you know, I'm not implying that every guy who would go up and punch another guy would automatically hit a woman. I'm not saying that at all. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm just saying that that kind of unstable, ungrounded reaction that led to a slap is gonna feel unstable to a woman, even if she's not the one who is the victim in that situation. She's not the one who is actually receiving the actual assault. It's gonna feel destabilizing, because anytime a man is in erratic emotions and he gets violent, it's gonna feel unsettling to a woman, because women are more vulnerable. And I have a video talking about women being more vulnerable in certain situations, and that's just, it's gonna feel unstable. Like, it's not, I'm not saying that this should necessarily trigger you, but as a woman, if seeing a man get really emotional and then hit someone or do something that is a physical act of violence, if that is unsettling to you, it's normal. It's totally normal as a woman. Now, if you let that shut you down, I mean, particularly if you're watching these celebrities and you let that situation or that scenario, which, you know, probably wasn't real, if you let that scenario affect your personal life and it triggers you to the point where you're having a lot of reactions to it, then that's something you really need to do some healing work on. Like, that's something that you probably should be working through, and you know, maybe talk to someone or get some help or something. But if you as a woman are in real life, you're in a situation where you're with a man, whether it be your partner or not, he gets really emotional and then it leads to him having a violent outburst, even if it's not against you, it's gonna feel unstable. That's just the nature of being a woman, and it's the nature of that male-female dynamic. And I really think that we need to just own that. Like, again, because like I've said in a lot of other videos, I believe men and women are equally important, but we're not the same. And I think that we need to stop pretending that we're the same and actually own up to the fact that there are differences between men and women. So I want to point out an example from my own life that I think actually demonstrates a little bit more of a healthier way to handle the situation. So again, like I said, I did stand-up comedy for 15 years, but early on in my comedy career, I was really new to comedy, and it was one of the first times that I was hanging out after a show with like a bunch of comics. And they're all male comics. I was the only woman hanging out. I only knew like 2 other comics that were there, and because I had worked with them a lot, so I was kind of hanging with them. And but I was meeting a lot of the other guys for the first time. And one of the comics there in particular is a real ball buster. That's just his thing. It's how he interacts with people. And look, it's a comic, comes to the territory, right? You know, I think he was testing things out with me to like kind of see if he could push some of my buttons and things like that. And to be honest with you, he wasn't bothering me at all. But he started to refer to me as a tourist, which in comedy terms is usually what you would call a comic who you don't think is really taking comedy seriously. They're just like there to try it out for a little bit and they're just gonna quit and do something else in a month or 2, right? So he started calling me that, and to be honest with you, it didn't really bother me all that much. Another comic who I had been working with, who I knew a little bit, was not my man, had no obligation to defend me or anything like that, very subtly said to this other comic, was like, seriously man, back off, she's serious. All he said. And honestly, it was so subtle, I think I might have been the only other person in the room that actually saw that interaction. Very grounded, very stable. He was not obligated to do that. He didn't have to. he just didn't like the way that this other comic was talking to me, and he felt a need to defend me. But he did it so subtly. He didn't make this other comic feel stupid. He didn't make him feel demeaned or degraded. He simply just from a very grounded place said basically to stop saying what he was saying. This comic, who was the ball buster, he didn't stop busting my balls. Like, I mean, he still did. I mean, if I ran into him today, he probably still would. But he's never called me a tourist again. Not since that moment. That shut it down. And that was all it took. It was very subtle. Now, granted, the comic that shut him down was probably about 10 times his size. But also, in all the years I've known him, he's never given anybody an indication that he would ever physically assault someone. That's just not his style, right? In that situation, that's all that it took, right? For someone who actually was getting a lot of pleasure in trying to push my buttons to just be like, back off, man. And that was that. Nobody had to get humiliated. Nobody had to get slapped or assaulted or anything. Very grounded, very stable. And I'm not saying that that situation is always gonna apply and that situation is always gonna work. But I also think that telling men that the only way you can stand up for your feminine partner is to go up and smack some guy, it's a really unhealthy precedent to set. Because there's other options. Now, if actually having to physically fight someone is what's called for in that moment, then that's a different situation. But knowing that you have other options and being able to defend someone, knowing that fighting them is a last resort, that you will resort to if you need to, but that doesn't have to be where you start from, is really important. And I think that shows really grounded, stable masculine energy. And for the guys out there, I really think that that's the type of masculine energy that you want to emulate, and that those are the types of leaders that you want to look for when it comes to role models as far as stepping into your masculine energy. And for women out there, that is the type of masculine energy that you want to look for when you're looking for a masculine partner. It's kind of like the Sex and the City scene where, you know, Charlotte meets the guy who like fights for her and she's all like, oh my god, he defended me, he's so manly. And then she finds out that like he just likes to pick fights with people, and she's like, no. It's like, yeah, as women, a guy who just wants to pick fights with people or who jumps to fighting really quickly because of his ego is not gonna feel safe and stable in the long run. It may feel nice for your ego for a man to take that level of protection for you, but at the end of the day, it's never gonna feel stable for you. And, you know, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say in this whole scenario, I think Chris Rock was probably the most masculine of everyone in this scenario, because, you know, he stayed grounded, he stayed really stable, he didn't even let it knock him down. He went back to doing what he was doing and went right back into the flow. Now, he is a pro, so I'm sure he's been thrown off on stage plenty of times. I don't know if he's ever been hit, but I'm sure he knows how to get himself back into the zone. So, you know, I will give it to him, but a man who can stay strong and stable and has a direction is way more masculine and has way more of a masculine appeal for a woman than a guy who's just going to get emotional and just punch someone out. And again, I'm not saying that men can't have emotions and can't work through their emotions. I have a video talking about men being able to express their emotions and cry in front of their partner and things like that if you want to check out that video. It's not about that. It's about the instability and the stability in a certain situation. And while I don't love that I just spent all this time indulging in celebrity gossip, I really do think that this example pulls apart a lot of relationship dynamics that are worth talking about. So I just figured this would be kind of a good jumping off point to talk about some of these situations. In general, I don't love talking about like celebrities in their real lives, so to speak, or some of these stunt instances. That's not really at all what I want my channel to become. But in situations like this where I feel like it could be helpful, I just figured I would use these examples as a jumping off point for conversation. So if you did find this video helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If any other thoughts on this topic or any topics you'd like me to talk about, please leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you and I love your suggestions. If you would like to learn to connect with your feminine energy, I have an online course called Feminine Radiance. Details are in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.